Got a comment that said my lipstick was too bright to talk about poetry. What? Oh, the jacket's too much. There we go. Much better. Hey there poetry pals, welcome back to another video. My name's Josie Alford and this week I am teaching you how to write a rhymed sestina. Before we go any further, please make sure you subscribe to my channel. I make new videos whenever I can about all things poetry. And while we're on the subject, why don't you follow me on social media? I am Josie Alford Poet and I even have a TikTok now. Hey Josie, why are you making a video on a rhymed sestina? I am so glad you asked, audience. Back in April, or in the UK as we like to call it, lockdown 1, I made a how to write a sestina video, and I'm not gonna lie, it nearly gave me a mental breakdown making that video. Sestinas are hard, guys. When I was making that video, I made the terrible joke that if enough people requested it, I would make a rhymed sestina video. And people actually had the cheek, the nerve and the gumption to say, yes, we'd like you to do a rhymed sestina. And let me tell you, I thought sestinas were hard. Rhymed sestinas are even worse. So, back in April, I wrote a sestina called If Lockdown Were a Poem, It Would Be a Sestina. This time I wrote a poem called If Lockdown 3 Were a Poem, It Would Be a Rhymed Sestina. Basically what I've realised is that when I write poems in certain forms for videos, I've realised that writing hate poems really helps me through the process of writing a form I don't enjoy. What's a sestina, I hear you say? I'm glad you asked. A sestina is a complicated verse form that first came out of Italy. It has 6 stanzas of 6 lines and the end word of each line is repeated in a particular order throughout, and then you have the final envoi, which is 3 lines long, which contains all 6 words. 3 at the end and 3 in the middle of each line. I explain it in much more detail in my How to Write a Sestina video. If you haven't watched that, you'll need to. The original sestina started in Italy and let me tell you, it did not rhyme. It had a particular order that the words repeated in, and actually, like, there's a little spiral diagram that I found. I'll make that appear here. Ooh! That shows you the order in which the words are repeated for each stanza. Then, as English poets are wont to do, they stole the form and started writing in English. And then they ruined it, which English poets are wont to do. And Swinburne in particular decided, do you know what, this particular form is not complicated enough, I'm going to make it rhyme. It's really weird how this twisted tale of events goes, isn't it? Like, you know, back in the 1400s, some guy decided, I'm going to write a really complicated type of poem. And now here I am in a sequin dress in the middle of lockdown, 600 years later, explaining to tell you guys, strangers on the internet, how to do it. What a twisted web we weave, let me tell you. A rhymed sestina is pretty much the same as a normal sestina, apart from it has the rhyme scheme A-B-A-B. And because of that, it has a slightly different repetition order of the words. Like I said with that diagram of how the end words repeat in a sestina, if you repeated the words in a rhymed sestina in the same way you would a normal sestina, the rhyme scheme would fall apart and you wouldn't have that nice A-B-A-B thing. Now, I'm going to share the actual order of how you do a rhymed sestina. It will be in the description and I'll make it pop up here. But one thing I found before I get into how I wrote it and what tips I can give you on writing one for yourself is that because you were having to stick to the A-B-A-B rhyme scheme, all the words ended up in very similar orders and it meant you could have less time to play with those words falling next to each other in the poem. You'll see what I mean when we get into the writing. So Josie, how do you write one? I'm so glad you asked, team. Let's go. If you've been watching any of my other videos, you'll know that I'm writing every day this year. I am doing 15-minute free writes every day throughout this year. And so when I decided that I was going to finally make this video, I decided to free write about it. I knew that I was going to write about lockdown 3 just for the symmetry of having my first sestina being about lockdown 1 and a rhymed sestina being a worse version of a normal sestina. Lockdown 3 was the obvious topic. I read somewhere on the internet that sestinas were actually invented to be difficult and claustrophobic. They are hard to write, guys. And so picking a topic for a sestina that reflects the claustrophobic and repetitive nature of the poem will help you. I think it compounds, you know, that sweet, sweet relationship between form and content, which is what makes poetry so good. I recommend picking something like that, which is why being stuck at home in lockdown actually makes for an excellent sestina topic. So for several Write With Me's, I was writing about my experience of lockdown 3. And one of the things that I made particular effort to do is when I was doing those free writes was to focus on imagery and different feelings and also sort of like concrete images or concrete experiences, actual things that happened that reflect the experience of lockdown 3 as a whole. I think doing this and finding concrete images and real experiences to root your poem in is a good idea when you're writing in any form, because when you're writing in forms, you can get so wrapped up in trying to fit the form that you forget to actually make the content of your poem good. So that was the purpose of these free writes. And I actually did this for 3 or 4 of my free writes, so I did 4 days worth of writing on this. The reason is when you come to actually stitching your poem together in this form, it's quite difficult and you want as much source material as you possibly can to draw from. Another tip for the free write is to not worry about the form while you're writing. Focus on the content and getting your ideas down. Focus on using beautiful imagery or different metaphors or like the funny stories that you would tell at the beginning of a work meeting about how your day is going. Think about all of those things first and do not worry about the form while you're doing free writing. Worrying about the form will come later on. Focus on getting your ideas down first. Trust and believe you're going to need it. So then after a couple of days of leaving those free writes to marinate and for my brain to have a think about it, I went through and I highlighted my favourite words, phrases, ideas from the free writes. And then I used them in a mind map where I put all of my ideas in one go. And the reason why I did this is because I still haven't picked my words yet. So you want to do a mind map of all of your poem, your ideas, all of those different things, and pull it together. And as you're doing that and you're organising your thoughts about the poem, certain words will repeat themselves. Once you've done that, it's time to pick the words, and trust and believe you should pick your words before you start writing the sestina. And when you're like, Josie, what do you mean picking my words? What the hell are you talking about? What I mean by that is picking the words that come at the end of your lines. The words that be repeated. Now, obviously, when you're picking your words for a rhymed sestina, you need to pick 3 words that rhyme with each other and then another set of 3 words that rhyme with each other. Don't forget that. That is important. So 3 words that rhyme with each other and another 3 words that rhyme with each other. If you want to be truly horrible with yourself, by all means, pick 6 words that rhyme, but really don't. It would be awful. My other bit of advice when it comes to choosing your words is to pick words that work in different contexts. You need words that have multiple meanings, or words that can be verbs and nouns and like work in various different ways. The reason being is you're going to be repeating these words 7 times in your poem, and using them in the exact same way every single time is going to get real boring real fast. So have a think about that. So the words I ended up choosing were walls, falls and calls, and it, fit and So you've picked your words, you've got your mind map, it's time to get writing. And I guess my advice to you is to not be too hard on yourself during this first draft. Honestly, the main difficulty is just getting these words on the page and for them to make sense. And let me tell you, the first time I wrote it, it didn't make sense much either. The first time I was writing my poem, it didn't work. I ended up writing myself in circles. I couldn't get it done. This video has taken me like 3 weeks to actually finish because it took me so long. So here are my tips when it comes to writing your first draft of your sestina. 1, ignore iambic pentameter. It doesn't matter right now. What matters is getting the words on the page. Hey guys, editing Josie here. Please ignore the fact that I told you to ignore iambic pentameter. When I was originally researching it, it said in a couple of places that sestinas should be in iambic pentameter, and while some versions are, the like latest scholars say that it doesn't need to be, and actually variations in line length are so common now that the common definition of a sestina does not need to be in iambic pentameter. So yes, in your first draft, ignore iambic pentameter, and in fact continue to ignore it as you carry on with your poem. Okay, back to Super Glam Josie. Bye. 2, have your end words written in the order they should be down the right hand side of your page so that your writing goes to it. 3, enjambment is your friend. Let those phrases run on. Do not keep using end stop clauses in a sestina. The problem with it is it just makes it more clunky and more claustrophobic. If you allow the lines or the clauses to run on beyond the end of each line, it allows the poem to flow much better. So trust and believe, enjambment is your friend. My final step when it comes to your first draft is to not be hard on yourself. So as I mentioned, and as you can see from this footage, I wrote mine by hand. Obviously you work however you work, but my next step is to then type it up. And during the typing process, I use that to correct any obvious mistakes I had, and to start thinking about punctuation if I'm going to use it, and to there will be certain phrases and words that I've used where like the line will be this long and I've realised I can make it the right size as I'm typing. So do that. And next, and I think this is key, is getting some friends to help you. By the time I got to this stage, I was so in my head when it came to this poem that I couldn't see the wood for the trees, basically. I was so in it, I couldn't look at it objectively. I hated it. I wanted to throw it in the bin. I couldn't even see the bits that were good, if I'm honest. And let me tell you, there aren't many. So one of the girls from my masters got in touch with me and we decided to get back together when it came to editing each other's poems. And let me tell you, it couldn't have come at a better time. So I sent them my sestina and they very graciously helped me go through it line by line to help me make it make sense. I think this is a key bit because by the time you've got to this point, you will have been so far in this poem that you won't be able to think outside of it. And the best bit is, it's probably even better if your friends don't know what a sestina is. As long as they know that they can't mess with the final word of each line, then you're good. I was really scared that they were going to be like, why did you use why I think you should change the rhyming words, because as soon as you change one of your words, you've got to change the whole poem. It's not just one point that you change, you've got to change every single point. This is why picking your words at the very beginning is important and letting them be as flexible as possible. So once you've done that, it's time to put their feedback into place. Let me tell you, mine was definitely an issue when it came to the capitalization, the punctuation, and also the pronouns. At several points throughout this poem ends up being about 3 different things. It's about an it, it's about a you, and it's about a we. And let me tell you, I didn't entirely solve it. I'm not gonna lie, team, this video is very much a do as I say and not as I do kind of video. I have to say, if it hadn't been for Nicola Heaney and Sophie Dumont, I would not have finished this poem, and it would be nowhere near as passable as it is. By the time I was getting towards the final edits, I realised I was going for, will it do? Does it make a basic amount of sense? Not, will this poem set the world on fire? I'll be honest with you, I've never read a sestina that has done that for me. I've never read a sestina I've enjoyed, but let me tell you that writing them does help you sharpen your writing skills. So yes, will I submit this poem for publication anywhere? I'm not entirely sure, I'll be honest with you, because I'm not sure that there are many publications out there who are really into strict poetry forms and also into swearing, so we'll have to see. Not to mention, I'm literally about to read it out to the internet, and a lot of publishers aren't a big fan of poems that have been published online, so maybe we'll just leave it here between us. So I'm about to read you my sestina, but I'm by no means saying that I am the best at this, and I actively encourage you, if you've written a sestina because of this video, please share the link to it or share it in the comments. I want to read it. I want to be proved that a sestina can be done well. I think my sestina is maybe passable, but if you have any added feedback for mine, I would love to hear it. So sound off in the comments below. I can't believe I just said sound off. Let me know in the comments below. Okay, here it is. The world premiere of If Lockdown 3.0 were a poem, it would be a rhymed sestina. For the 3rd time, we are trapped behind walls of our own making, trying to fit ourselves back inside, shrinking into video calls and trying not to think about how long it will last. Guarded against hope, the rain falls, and this time the weather is more In fact, this time, everything is more We're exercising the rights we can outside our walls, but keep catching colds instead. It is a lot. Those increasingly tearful calls to faraway family that seem to fit somewhere between keeping us going and those falls into those dark places when it all falls over you like heavy snow and isn't getting any easier and the walls can't close in anymore and you have got used to it, used to the dark spaces, and the dark calls back to you and you wonder where the light used to fit. And we are acknowledging that none of our jeans fit, even the ones we stole from mum that used to fall down. We don't need belts now because this is harder to lose than it was to gain, and there are walls now between you and loving your body. It is deserving of your love. Return its calls. This unprecedented new normal calls for new words, and doom scrolling is a perfect fit for thumbing down Facebook walls, sharing, liking, absorbing, talking endlessly, watching the world end until the sun falls and another day's gone. And what did we do with it? And it's dark all the time now, isn't it? And we're all in relentless video calls, work, play, and everything else fit into this 13.5-inch box. If the internet falls, so will society, if it hasn't already gone to shit, if you believe the prophecy-plastered walls. Know that the walls won't stand forever, and it will be glorious. We'll fit into arms, not Zoom calls, and when the lockdown falls, we'll toast the end of all this global pandemic that's actually been really difficult, actually. So that's it for this video. I hope you found it useful. Please comment down below with your sestinas or any feedback on mine. I'd love to hear it. In fact, any feedback is welcome, apart from feedback on my lipstick, makeup, or general appearance. Unless it's positive. Thanks so much for joining me. Please hit subscribe, turn the notifications on. It helps small channels like me get found. And while we're talking about it, why don't you follow me? I am Josie Alford Poet on all the things. And as I said, I have TikTok now. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.